IVM.
Hi, I'm Satyajit.
Hi, I'm Rachita.
Welcome to Paperback by the Open Library Project.
We have as our guest today Lakshmi Narayan. Lakshmi is the author of Bonsai, Kitten and Whisperings From Beyond. In the first half of the episode, we discuss how a prolonging headache led Lakshmi to penning down Whisperings From Beyond and helped many readers deal with bereavement and loss.
In the second half, we discuss Cooking of the Maharajas by Shalini Devi and Shivaji Holkar, 9 Parts of Desire by Geraldine Brooks, Chasing the Monsoon by Alexander Frater, and Ocean of Churn by Sanjeev Sanyal. Happy listening.
Suicide, a weakened soul. A suicide is a weakened soul, defeated by life, crying out, "I give up," midway through the journey, who cannot progress in his present form. So the source takes him away. When the soul is rested and calm, and able to re-recognize beauty, he comes down once more to complete his unfinished task, stronger than before. If we were a marathon runner and lungs bursting collapsed from the track, what would our coach do? Revive us with an energy drink, a bit of physiotherapy, and a pep talk till we are on our feet again. And that's exactly what the source does to help a suicide complete his run. I would like to talk about this a little bit. This thought is especially precious to me. I was crushed and in despair when I lost a very loved one to suicide. I sought the answers in religious books but was disappointed because all they did was take a high moral tone and talk of punishment and crime. They offered me no solace at all till this thought came along.
Thank you, Lakshmi Narayan. That was an extract from her book, Whisperings From Beyond. We'll be right back after this to discuss the book in more detail.
Did I just catch you on your way to work? Or did you end up pulling an all-nighter? Let me guess. You have a packed schedule for the day, the week, and probably the month and the year. That's a lot for your mind to handle, don't you think? This buzzing chaos also brings tons of negative thoughts. Am I right? Try spinning that bottle in a positive direction with me, Chetna, on the Positively Unlimited podcast, every Monday on IBM Podcasts. It's time to change your life one alphabet at a time.
Welcome to Paperback by the Open Library Project. I am your co-host Satyajit, otherwise known as Onion Knight in most food circles. I'm hosting this podcast with my co-founder at the Open Library Project, Rachita Sharma.
Hi guys, my name is Rachita. I'm an ex-banker, social impact entrepreneur, podcaster, writer, publisher, and inveterate learner. The Open Library Project is a curated library service which is offered to corporates on a subscription basis. The idea here is to create value, build a knowledge community, and encourage a growth mindset amongst members.
Today we have with us on the show Lakshmi Narayan. Lakshmi began her career in journalism with the Times of India Group. She went on to become the editor of Flair and Eve's Weekly and worked in Dubai and Singapore as a journalist before returning to India. Her book, Bonsai, Kitten, received critical acclaim and was longlisted for the prestigious literary awards in India and abroad. Welcome to the show, Lakshmi. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
So, tell us a little bit about how you got into writing. Was there ever an intention to be a writer in your career?
I come from a family of writers.
Okay.
My mother, my grandparents, my father, my uncles, my aunts are all writers.
Wow.
So it's in the blood.
So it was, in fact, my grandfather ran a paper where he was the peon, the sub-editor, the reporter, and the editor. And the cartoonist. So it's in my blood. And it was a very natural corollary when I went into journalism.
Okay.
I never thought of any other career. It never occurred to me to be something else.
Yeah, I think, when you're seeing your family so inclined towards, a certain industry, also it automatically develops your interest in it. So I think Satyajit is now a publisher after his grandfather was running a publication.
My grandfather used to run a rubber news publication. He was known for his unyielding views and was a very harsh man in terms of his work and he was kind of recognized for it, for being as good as he was, because that's one of the characteristics of a good journalist, that you pursue the truth. So, yeah, and now we've come full circle where we've started our own publishing house.
Wonderful. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you so
need
much.
a lot of young blood in the business.
That's
we
so good
really
to
hope,
hear.
we can make the difference.
Great.
You will make the difference.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about this book, how you conceptualized writing it, and what was the whole writing process like?
I must go back a little bit.
Sure.
Right.
As a journalist, obviously you're a very cynical, skeptical person by training as well as by aptitude, I think.
Right.
Also very nosy. So what happens is you spend your time exposing things. I remember but of course exposing things can hit you back in very different ways, unexpected ways. For instance, when I was in Femina, I had done a story on the before and after of a breast development gadget that somebody had brought to India.
Okay.
And I found out the before and after pictures were taken on the same day. They just made her wear a tighter bra and put on, tapes to make it seem bigger. We carried the article and I was very proud of it. Except we got about 1,500 letters from men asking us to trying to find out where to buy the gadget for their wives and girlfriends. So it misfired completely.
Unexpected result from.
So we basically, as journalists, we debunked godmen. We debunked anybody who seemed to be like, and I think it's in my blood, this thing of debunking, the sannyasis and people like that, because my grandfather told us this story about how this guy came to him and pulled ashes out of somewhere and pulled a ring and gave it to him and all the rest of it. And he said, "Now do you believe in me?" And my grandfather said, "Sure, I'll meet you at the police station. I'm taking you there." So
Wow.
Coming from that background, I'm very proud of it. A very rational background.
Absolutely.
I was a little taken by surprise when Whisperings happened. Because what happened was, one day I got a very bad headache.
Okay.
And it would not, it was a dull throbbing headache. And I went and got a tablet, went and lay down. It wasn't helping.
Okay.
And suddenly this strange buzz started going in my head. Rainbow star, rainbow star.
Okay.
This was in November 2008.
Okay.
I had no idea what it meant. And so I went and Googled it. And there was a whole lot of rubbish about rainbow star. Somebody said it's a toy and some ship that sank. And suddenly this thing jumped up on me. And I was absolutely, swept off my feet. This is by an unknown author. There was this beautiful picture of a rainbow star. And it said, "Rainbow star, the star could represent ourselves. It often seems as if we are in a black void, isolated, alone, when in fact we are completely surrounded, supported and loved by the entire cosmos." Now, this was quite something, but frankly, I didn't know what it had to do with me.
Right.
I'm not quite sure exactly when it happened, but whether that day or a couple of days later, I sort of got this message where I was told, "You'll now be getting messages which is not just for you but for others." I had no idea what it meant. I ignored it. But then I started getting the headaches, very pressing headaches. And a bird would buzz in my head. I had to sit down and write down what was coming. If I didn't write, the headache wouldn't go away. So I had this friend, Roxanne Marker, who's a faith healer.
Okay.
And I asked her, I said, "What is this?" So she said, "Look, are they asking you to kill somebody?" I said, "No." So she said, "What's your problem? Write it down."
Yeah.
So I wrote it down, and this went on for 8 years. I had Roxanne did tell me to start typing it and putting it in proper order because I was writing it by hand. Then I didn't know what it was all about, and suddenly one day I got this word imprimatur floating in my head. I'd never heard the word before. My husband and I are big crossword buffs. I said, have we used this word somewhere? He said, no. Look it up in the dictionary. And I nearly fainted because it said, license to publish.
Oh.
That was the meaning of imprimatur.
Oh.
I was so shocked. And next thing you know, Hay House published my book.
Wow.
And after that, I started getting a lot of messages, not messages. I started getting, a lot of people started contacting me, telling me how this book has changed their lives. There are people who still call me and tell me it's by their bedside table, and it helps them a lot. Every day they read a page out of it. Somebody who got widowed said she couldn't have gone through that bereavement without this book by her side. So it has helped a lot of people.
Right. And that's the real success, right? When you get to hear from people that, your book is really,
that's right. That's
touching
right.
them in some way.
But
Absolutely.
the book has been strange in many ways. After I wrote down whatever came, I could not remember any of it. Every time I open the book and I read it, it feels like someone else has written it, not me.
Okay.
So I made it a point to say scripted by Lakshmi Narayan. It doesn't say written by Lakshmi Narayan, because I honestly don't know who sent these thoughts. Roxanne did tell me that I would have 365 for each day of the year.
Okay.
I joked and I told her it'll be 366. You forgot the leap year. And believe it or not, there are exactly 366 out there.
Okay. Yeah. And, would you like to share some of the, reflections with us and our listeners?
Well, I do go to various book clubs and address them. And some of the things they ask me, I find it very strange because it has not occurred to me. Like, for instance, one lady stood up and said, why don't you admit that this came from God?
Okay.
So I tell her, what proof do I have that this has come from God?
Right.
It could be an evolved being. It could be an alien. How do I know who it is?
Yeah.
Or it could be, they say that we only use 3% of our brains. So maybe it came from the dormant 97% that suddenly woke up.
Yeah.
So I can't really say from where it's come.
But do you have some sort of intuition or
None at all.
Nothing?
None
Okay.
at all.
Okay. So and
I have
now
no idea.
it's after you got all 366 messages, then they stopped happening after.
Well, I have got about 10 or so after that.
Okay.
Very dark ones.
Okay.
Okay.
And I don't know why I've got them.
Okay.
And they've sort of spread over the years. But what did come along with this book was a whole lot of incredible, intriguing fables.
Okay.
Set in the Once Upon a Time mold.
Okay.
But each one of them carries a 21st century moral.
Okay.
For instance, what are 21st century morals? 21st century morals are tolerance, the ability to laugh at oneself, the ability to differentiate between black, white and grey. Because all religions talk of black and white. They don't talk of grey.
Yeah.
So these are 21st century morals.
Yeah.
And it's beautifully embedded in each one of those fables.
Oh, lovely.
So I haven't published that. That's still with me. I'm waiting to see where we go on that.
You have publishers here in case.
Have a look at it by all means.
Yeah. So, who would you recommend this book to? Who should be the one picking up your book?
I think this book is, I won't say it is necessarily for people who are going through bereavement or anything like that, or grief, because at the end of it, the book, I think, is offering you hope.
Right.
Yeah.
And hope is something we all need.
Right.
So I would say it's for everybody.
Great. And where can we find the book? Where is it available?
Amazon.
It's available on Amazon.
Flipkart.
Okay, great. So we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back after this to discuss a few more books.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, I really don't know what to tell you at this point in time. I mean, I'm so disappointed in you. Please go follow us. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. On The Scene and the Unseen, Amit is joined by entrepreneur and author Jerry Rao. They talk about conservatism in India's own tradition rather than as a Western thought. Guys, we have some really exciting news this week too. Our show, Advertising is Dead, has reached 50 episodes. This special occasion was marked with a live recording at the Glitch office. We had some really great guests for this episode as well. Rohan Joshi, the comedian, was there, as was actor, social media influencer, and co-host of Agla Station Adulthood, Ritasha Rathore. The episode drops on Tuesday, November 5th. Make sure you check it out. On Golgappa, Trupti is joined by Indrajit More, a content creator for Bhadipa and Bhatupa. They discuss traveling on a budget and so much more. On Football Shitball, hosts Gaurav, Karthik and Shiva round out the weekend's Premier League fixtures. And they give us a few predictions about the midweek UCL games. On The Habit Coach, Ashton talks about visualizing victory and shares 3 ways to increase mental toughness. This week on Boundless, Natasha tells us how she learned to keep it simple from her husband and how it took her a long time to listen to her own voice among the conflicting ones. On Gaby series, Sunetra and Farhad discuss their life in their 30s, and they share how it has made them confront their insecurities with more perspective. This week on a special episode of the Pragati podcast, Pawan talks to host of Pulyabazi Pranay Kotastane about State Formation Day and how states need to rise to the expectations of its residents. On Mr. and Mrs. Binge Watch, Janice and Anirudh continue their teen drama series, and this time they're talking about The Politician and Dear White People. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
Welcome back, guys. We still have with us Lakshmi Narayan. Hi, Lakshmi.
Hi.
Enlightening conversation in the first half. And in the second half, we're going to discuss books by a few other authors. The first one we're discussing is Cooking of the Maharajas by Shalini Devi and Shivaji Rao Holkar. So, can you tell us a little bit about this book and how you maybe came about it?
This book was very different from the usual cookery books that one found.
Right.
This is a very old book. This was published in the 70s.
Okay.
And when it came, the amazing thing was that it had so much, it was not just a recipe book, but I would say it's a recipe book for compulsive collectors of myths, history, anecdotes, and plain trivia.
Okay.
She spent 6 years researching this book.
Okay.
And came up with some hilarious things. It's written for an American audience, but it's still good enough for us.
Okay.
As recipes go, I don't know how many dishes we can make covered with gold-covered pistachios
Right.
and silver-covered almonds. So it's
But
a good read.
is there, do some of these recipes include the bizarre in terms of, because
Yes,
I would
yes.
imagine that Maharajas would have eccentric taste in terms of their food habits.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. In fact, there's a lovely gem from a medieval Muslim cookbook. It says, take a fat chicken and sprinkle vinegar over it. Rub it well and leave it for an hour in the sun. Then kill the chicken and carefully pluck the feathers. Now, I said this to a Rajasthani friend of mine, and she said, what's so funny about it? We give a teaspoon of vinegar to our chickens every day for a week, and then we kill them.
Oh, is it?
So apparently
Is
it softens the meat.
Okay. Wow.
So they say.
Wow.
So, like interesting facts along the way.
That's right. That's right. She had some funny bits. I mean, it was very American in the sense that she said an Indian housewife is pleased only when her guests belch. So she, a few silly things like that.
Right.
Another one is she makes generalizations like Kerala is a vegetarian state. Kerala is anything but a vegetarian state. There are a few, glitches like that. But I read it because it was so lovely reading it and beautiful photographs.
Okay.
To go with it. There's another one where she found an unusual recipe from Emperor Jahangir's cookbook.
Okay.
Which said, as you know, the Mughals were very particular about writing down everything that happened in their lives.
Right.
And this was a recipe for halim made out of pig trotters.
Okay.
So she said, what on earth is a recipe doing with pigs?
In a Muslim cuisine.
In a Muslim, that was
Surprising.
a royal Muslim thing.
Right.
Apparently, Jahangir got so fed up of all the rules. He said, do you know of, and he asked his clergy, he said, do you know of any religion that does not offer any taboos? And he was told with a great deal of trepidation, Christianity. And that was the time the Christian missionaries were coming into India, very desperate to convert the Mughal court.
Right.
Yeah.
So he said, fine, I'll become a Christian.
Oh.
So the clergy quickly said, no, it's perfectly permissible for kings to eat
Oh, yeah.
halim made out of pig's trotters. So that's
Right.
how the recipe got into it.
Wow.
Lovely.
There's another story which is very cute. The Maharajah of Ceylon had a very good chef who would not part with his recipes. What he would do was he'd wait till the Maharaja looked the other way and quickly put in some spices
Okay.
into the food. So what he did was he gave him the spice box and let him take the spices and then took it away. What he didn't know, the cook didn't know, was that each spice had been carefully weighed.
Okay.
The Maharaja then went back and re-weighed them
And he knew
and found out
exactly
how much was
yeah.
missing from each, and he knew what had gone into the dishes.
Oh.
The cook was trying to preserve his, superior.
Yeah.
Copyright.
Yeah.
In fact, I heard this even from a Taj chef.
Okay.
He was a sous chef. He told me when the main chef the cuisine, would teach them how to make something, and then he'd literally say "Chidiya dekho" and quickly add something to the dish.
Wow. Wow. So
Wow.
practices that continued through centuries.
That's right.
So this book would be ideal for anybody who wants,
Who's a connoisseur? Wants
like
to.
a cooking come history lesson.
That's right.
of
Since
sorts.
then, of course, we have many books in a similar vein.
Right.
Today, there's one called Curries and Bugles about the British Raj, which also has many stories and then the recipes.
Okay.
So now it's become the norm.
Right. But
But
this
when
was
it first came, it was very pioneering.
Right.
Right.
Great. The next book that we're moving on to is 9 Parts of Desire by Geraldine Brooks. So this book kind of deals with the plight of Islamic women.
It doesn't deal with the plight of Islamic women. What happened was Geraldine Brooks is a very senior journalist. She was the foreign correspondent of the Wall Street Journal in Cairo.
Okay.
And she had a young yuppie assistant working for her who suddenly one day turned up swathed in a chador.
Okay.
Oh.
And she said, why? So she said, she gave a whole lot of reasons how it protects her and, keeps her safe and all the rest of it. She couldn't understand how an educated young girl could forcibly take several steps backwards.
Yeah.
So what she did was she started meeting many people. She met the Ayatollah's daughter. She met Queen Noor of Jordan. She met ordinary people. She realized what the Quran basically says is cover yourself up decently.
Right.
This is interpreted right down from shrouding yourself completely to wearing a salwar kameez and taking a dupatta and just covering your head.
Yeah.
So it's based on your interpretation of what the Prophet said.
Right.
Yeah.
So from there on, she goes forward and meets them and tries to interpret what the Quran actually said about women.
Okay.
So it's a very fair-minded book.
Right.
It doesn't take sides, and it's very much like how a journalist should write a book.
Yeah.
Where today's journalists have all become activists, as you know. They
Yeah.
editorialize instead of reporting.
Right.
Yeah.
In our days, we presented the facts and we gave both sides of the picture and let
Right.
the reader make up his mind.
Right.
So that's what she does in this book, and I'm very happy about it.
And that is quite interesting because, from all my Muslim friends, I have known that the Quran actually just, gives you certain, the best ways of doing certain things, guidelines, and they leave it to you to think, how you want to implement this or understand this particular thing.
Yeah.
So it's left to your interpretation. And while I think that is very liberating in terms of religion when it allows you to sort of, make practical sense of it and apply, but I guess there are, cons to it also where it's been decently has been interpreted to people's convenience.
But that's
mostly.
all religions
Yeah.
have been.
All
Right.
It's
So,
not. Yeah.
But that's quite interesting if, it brings out those facts.
She came across one amazing instance amongst the Tuaregs, who are tribals in the Sahara. The rule is when a man reaches puberty, he has to veil himself, not the women.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yesterday I saw an article in the newspaper about now there being, baby changing toilets in the men's bathroom in the Bangalore airport. So I guess, there is this sort of change coming in.
That's a nice thing. We go backwards, we come forwards.
Yeah.
That's what life is all about, I suppose.
Right.
The next book that we are moving on to is Chasing the Monsoon by Alexander Frater. Tell us a little bit about this book.
You must have heard that phrase that only mad dogs and Englishmen do certain things. This I found when we were posted in Dubai.
Okay.
That while all of us were covering ourselves from head to foot to avoid the heat, the scorching heat there, the Englishmen we knew would cover themselves up with suntan and go for a walk hoping to tan themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think this book falls in that category. And I'm glad it does, because there are many books on the monsoon. That it's not that we don't have, but they are very dull and drab books.
Right.
This is very individualistic, it's personal. And when I read this, I ask myself, why is it that you need a foreigner to look at something that we take for granted?
Yeah.
We've been through monsoons, all of us. We've danced in the rains. We've done all that. We never asked ourselves, where does it come from?
Right.
And this guy actually took the trouble to go and find out that at Kovalam, just a few miles off Trivandrum, this is the place where the monsoon actually comes from across the Indian Ocean.
Okay.
And there is a fantastic description here where he describes what it means. And after that, it's been my ambition to go to Kovalam and I want to witness the monsoon there. He says, a line of spectators had formed behind the Kovalam beach road. They were dressed with surprising formality. Many of the men wearing ties and the women fine saris, which streamed and snapped in the wind. Their excitement was shared and sharply focused, like that of a committee preparing to greet a celebrated spiritual leader or a victorious general who would come riding up the beach on an elephant. All that lacked was welcoming garlands of marigolds. As I joined them, they greeted me with smiles, a great guest arriving at their function. The sky was black, the sea white. Foaming like champagne, it surged over the road to within a few feet of where we stood. Blown spume stung our faces. We stood rocking in the blast, clinging to each other amidst scenes of great merriment. And then the deluge began. The umbrella raised, he's talking about somebody standing next to him. The umbrella raised, almost lifted him off his feet before being blown inside out. The rain hissed on the sea and fell on us with a buzzing, swarming noise. The air was suddenly fluid and fizzing.
Wow, that was pretty descriptive in the sense that you really feel the intricacies of the beginning of the monsoon.
Yeah.
While standing there and waiting for it to, arrive.
Yeah, it's...
I've always suffered from migraines in the summer.
Okay.
So for me, when the monsoon comes, I am so delighted. It's like rebirth, and then I feel like I'm going to, climb Mount Everest. So in my first book, Bonsai, Kitten,
Right.
I have described this feeling. I say, how I adore the monsoons. I must have been a naiad, a free-worshipping animist in my past life. Not for me the silly pitter-patter that pussyfoots through the day. Rather, the Empyrean expanse in full battle regalia, trumpets blaring, flags waving, elephants charging, as clouds collide violently against clouds, wringing out their lifeblood to sate the cracked, desiccated earth below. The roiling mass putting up an astral sonne lumiere show that truly deserves a standing ovation.
Wow, beautiful.
Very nicely
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's actually the beauty of, South and I think North as well, that, you get to see so many shades of the sky. You get to see sunrise and sunset like never before.
Yeah.
and just, be in the middle of those mountains and sitting on those clouds and enjoying that. So it's just beautiful.
In fact, then he concludes the book by going to Cherrapunji, where the monsoon ends.
Right.
And his descriptions of those misty mountains, Meghalaya, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And of course, you also find out some terrible facts, like though it is the wettest place on earth, there's a severe water shortage there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's pretty alarming to know. And what do you think about the recent frogs getting married and divorced for monsoon scenario that happened? Are you aware of it? Have you?
Frog marriages are a very old tradition.
Right.
Okay. And they've been going on for a long time.
But frog divorce, this was the first time.
Frog divorce, well, they are modern frogs.
Yeah, they're modern frogs. They don't have tolerance. So,
the last book we're talking about today is The Ocean of Churn by Sanjeev Sanyal. We discussed his other book also on an earlier episode, and just his description, The Land of Seven Rivers, and just his descriptions of the country and everything he has a very unique way of writing. That's what really stands out for me. What about you, Lakshmi? What do you like about this book?
See, what happens is that we have been brought up too much on a diet of Mughals and North Indian history.
Right.
yeah.
It almost seems like our history begins and ends with the Mughals. Even see the surfeit of books in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's all about the Mughals. And I agree that it's very difficult to cover all of India because we are so vast and so varied. Nonetheless, I think as it's now happening, more and more people are dredging out old stories, old history books. We are not dependent only on English language historians.
Right.
Yeah.
We are looking at Greek, we are looking at all other historians also,
Right.
local historians, and coming up with amazing stories. And so, for instance, one of the things I realized after reading Sanjeev Sanyal's history book is that most of what happened via the seas, not over the Himalayas,
Right.
as we thought. We think of China as a country beyond the Himalayas, but actually we've been in touch with the Chinese from the seas for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like when we were posted in Singapore, one of the things I realized was the influence of Tamil and Tamil kings in that part, going right up to Japan and the Philippines.
Right.
There are Tamil words in the Japanese language. There are Tamil words in Tagalog, which is the Philippine language.
Right.
A friend, my neighbor who was a Filipina, she gave me a book written by a Christian missionary.
Okay.
On the history of the Philippines.
Oh.
And I read it, and it says that they were humiliated and exploited by every single country that colonized them, including the Americans and the Spanish.
Okay.
The only people who respected their culture and allowed them to thrive were the Tamil kings who ruled over them.
Okay.
So these are things, but do you ever
don't
read
know,
such
yeah.
things in your history?
We are just unaware
We are
because
totally unaware of our history.
Right.
And
the truth, I feel, sorry to interrupt, it's just I feel that we've been learning the history is just from one point of view.
Yeah.
And now when we look at it in a broader context, there are many things that make more logical sense than the history that we have learned. So as we are progressing through, as we are getting more connected as a world, I think what's happening is we are able to compare these different writings of different people.
That's right.
And
That's right.
it's fascinating how different things are when
From a different
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because see now what they're discovering with the Harappan civilization.
Yeah.
Then also all our underground, underwater civilizations
Right.
that have gone. What we, for some reason, decided were mere myths. Today, it's being proved that they were not myths.
Yeah.
And in fact, Sanjeev Sanyal starts his book with this lovely story of the Pallava King. This is in AD 731. The Pallava kingdom faced a huge crisis. Its king Parmeshwara Varman had died without leaving behind an heir. 5 generations earlier, Bhima, the younger brother of Simha Vishnu, had sailed across the seas to a distant kingdom, married the local princess and become the ruler. Now a delegation followed his footsteps and requested his descendants to spare them a king. The ruler had 4 sons. The first 3 refused the honor, but the 4th, barely 12, agreed. He was brought back with much pomp and honor and crowned Nandivarman. It is now believed that he was a Cambodian prince. And how do we know all this? When I read how it was found out, I just feel like, saying what's wrong with us. It's carved on the rock inscriptions and bas-relief panels of the Vaikunta Perumal temple in Kanchipuram. Why was it not deciphered earlier?
Right.
It happened to me when I was covering Gangaikonda Cholapuram in Tamil Nadu, built by Rajendra Chola. I found a granite stone there with the sun in the middle and all the planets going around it.
Oh.
That stone, the temple was built in 1025 or 1035, I'm not sure.
So it was carved on the stone?
It's a solid block. Now, he is called Gangaikonda Chola. Gangaikonda Chola, he's called, because he went all the way to the Ganges, defeated them, and he was quite a cruel guy. He brought them back with all the kings in chains, and then beheaded them when he got them back home. So they say this stone, if it has come from beyond the Ganges, maybe even older than 1025.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we don't know how old it is.
Right.
We have things like this lying all over the place, which have not been documented at all.
Yeah.
And that is
not even deciphered as in the meaning has not been deciphered. So
like for instance, I'll give an example. I inherited iron kadhai. It's called China Chatti in Chin Chatti. Actually, it's called in Malayalam. And I just used it. It never occurred to me. Till one day I realized, when we were posted in Singapore, I realized it's an iron wok. It's called China Chatti. Chatti is a pot. China is Chinese. So it's a Chinese pot. So, and then the modaks that we eat here are dim sums. You find them here, you find them in Kerala. So these are all sea roots.
Right.
So we have gone on the sea routes and made friends with the Chinese and various other people for thousands of years, and there's no record of it.
It's just lost. The histories are written by the victors of the war usually, and that's where I think a lot of things have got lost. But it's good that at least in terms of what is accepted as history nowadays, at least we are opening our minds to these alternate parallel timelines that went on.
But there's a lot of resistance also.
Definitely. I
think there's always resistance to change. And new thinking.
Yeah. It's just getting out of the comfort zone is not comfortable.
That's right.
For anybody.
That's right.
But it's really nice because we've spoken about a very different perspective of history. So I think anybody who wants to know like a new take on history, then this is the right book for them.
Yes.
Great.
I hope he writes more books.
Yeah, definitely. We are all looking forward to reading more of in our own country's history.
That's right.
In a new light.
And more of your books.
And more of your books as well.
Thank you so much.
It was great having you on the show, Lakshmi. It was a fascinating conversation, and we look forward to having you on the show maybe at a later date sometime again.
Thank you so much.
A lot of new facts for our listeners and for us. So thank you.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
And a big thank you to all our listeners. You can follow the Open Library Project on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook for latest updates on our events. And stay tuned for the next Paperback podcast on IVM Podcasts. Happy reading. You can follow IVM Podcasts on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at IVM Podcasts. Listen to Paperback on the IVM Podcast app, website or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Look! Up in the internet! It's a meme! No! It's a cat video! No! It's the Geek Fruit Podcast!
That's right, we interrupt this riveting broadcast to tell you about our show, the Geek Fruit Podcast, where Tejas, Dinkar and I, Jishnu, talk about everything in pop culture, including DC, Marvel, Star Wars, Netflix and everything in between.
You know how your friends hate it when you ramble about some nerdy crap and you just want somebody to listen to you? Well, sorry, there's nothing we can do about that, but come listen to us ramble and it'll almost be like the real thing. Kind of.
Listen to new episodes of the Geek Fruit Podcast every Monday and the Geek Fruit Bulletin every Thursday on iTunes, Google Podcasts, the IVM app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy listening, you nerds.
माणसं ना गोलगप्प्यासारखी असतात. हाय हॅलो करताना वेगळी आणि बोलताना वेगळी आणि गप्पा मारताना वेगळी, मित्र झाली की वेगळी आणि शत्रू म्हणून वेगळी, थोडक्यात दिसणारी वेगळी आणि असणारी वेगळी. कधी आंबट, कधी गोड, कधी तिखट, तर कधी चमचमीत आणि कधी कधी हॉट अँड स्पायसी सुद्धा. आणि म्हणूनच गप्पा सॉरी गोल गप्पा विथ तृप्ती खामकर फक्त तुमच्यासाठी दर बुधवारी IVM पॉडकास्टच्या ऍपवर, वेबसाईटवर किंवा युट्यूब चॅनलवर सुद्धा ऐकू शकता. तुम्ही आमचा पॉडकास्ट वेगवेगळ्या पॉडकास्ट प्लॅटफॉर्मवरती ऐकू शकता. फक्त सर्च करा गोल गप्पा विथ तृप्ती खामकर आणि आमचा पॉडकास्ट ऐकत रहा.